I had been making YouTube videos for about 3 months when a friend of mine said, "Hey, you know that your delivery style really reminds me of Hank Green," and I had no idea who that was. So I got turned on to him. Hank and John Green are two YouTubers who've been doing it since 2007. John Green
Mhm.
is also an author who wrote that book, The Fault in Our Stars, that got turned into a movie. And
And he was mentioned by Bill Gates in an article about the 35 best books he read this year. I think
yep,
something like that, some absolute bonkers thing.
yeah. So they've
Wow.
been doing it for a very long time, and they're just real good at it. And so I have definitely become more and more like Hank and John. I'd say that my video and script style is a lot more like Hank, but I actually think that my delivery style is a lot more like John, and I just think that their videos are fantastic.
I've seen one of them. I'm not quite sure which one. I think it's John. They do history and science, right? Or something along those lines.
Yeah, they also have their educational channels. They started with a channel that's just a vlog channel, just like the one that I have, the one that you saw, and then they became pretty big, and so they expanded so that they do science channels and space science, and then history, literature, all that kind of stuff.
Interesting. What do you put on your YouTube channel?
Just vlog type stuff. I do talk about things that are sort of going on and that I'm thinking through in my books. I actually didn't even really realize how much I do that until I was recently going back and watching some of my old videos, and I can see stuff that I'm talking about that is in the most recent book that I put out, and I forgot that I had like spoken about it in the YouTube. But you're just kind of soaking in it for so long that it kind of affects everything that you're talking about. So
Yeah.
it came out in the videos, and then it came out in the book.
It's just so fascinating how it came out so fluid while watching it. And you talked about your novels and the process so well. Can you tell me what you have published right now? I think it's like 6 novels, right?
Oh, it's more than that. I think that my total. Let me just do a quick count real quick. So, so the total count is 16 novels
Wow.
published. Yeah. However, only 9 of those are what I really talk about or what I really tell people about, because
Hmm.
I used to genre hop a lot. My first book was like a contemporary sort of sci-fi thriller, and then I did a horror comedy, and then like an actual like spy thriller, and then some young adult fantasy. And then I started writing epic fantasy, and two things happened. One, I really loved it. I've always been an epic fantasy like huge fan. Tolkien's always
Hmm.
been like my biggest and favorite thing that I enjoy.
Totally.
So once I started writing it, I was like, oh yeah, this is so much better, and I enjoy this so much more. And then it started being really successful. So I was just like, well, I guess this is just what I'm doing now, and that's wonderful.
Do you think if you hadn't have been successful with your epic fantasy stories, would you have continued to genre hop?
Maybe, but maybe not, because I enjoyed everything that I wrote, and I liked it, and I still like it. And but once I hit epic fantasy, once I started writing the Underrealm books, it was next level enjoyment and personal fulfillment. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
Certainly, if I had then decided, you know what, let me write like one space opera, and then I'd written the space opera, and that had turned out to be the big successful thing, I probably would have focused more on that for career purposes. But I definitely think I would have kept going with the epic fantasy.
It's interesting. I genre hop too right now. Obviously, I don't have the type of success that you do, or somebody else like a John Scalzi who he tends to write just science fiction as well. I
Yeah.
guess the only person I can think of that has some sort of success is Orson Scott Card, who's done the fantasy Seventh Son series, and then he has his Ender's Game series as well.
Right. Although I think that his sci-fi is definitely his big thing. I know that
Oh
I,
yeah,
I
his Ender
remember,
Game series, that's all he writes now. It seems like I don't think he's done anything else in his entire career.
yeah, he has done some other more sort of obscure sci-fi series. He did one called, oh, what was it called? It's sitting over on my bookshelf, but that's across the room. But there was one really incredible book called Past Watch, I want to say.
Okay.
Um, it was basically about basically it's the distant future, and the world is ending. We've messed it up too badly, and we discover time travel finally.
Oh,
But the way time travel works is that once somebody goes back, basically the existing universe is gone, and it kind of resets from that point. And so kind of like a planetary survey is taken and everybody's like, well, the world is ending anyways, so we might as well send some people back and try and fix it. So 3 people go back to the time of Columbus because that is determined to be the breaking point where everything started to go wrong. And so they go back and start changing things. It is a fantastic book. It is so good.
Playing with time travel is a scary proposition. People love to dig into those paradoxes and figure out how they don't work.
Yeah, it is called Past Watch. Past Watch: The Redemption of Christopher Columbus.
That's fascinating. Would you recommend against genre hopping as going into a literary career?
Okay, so as with so many things, the answer is completely, it depends. There's some people who just can't kind of relegate themselves to one thing. And here's the thing is that the thing that I wrote before I started writing the Underrealm books was a literary fiction novel.
Okay.
And I want to write more of those in the future. It's just that it was like, to me, literary fiction is its own beast, and I had something that I desperately wanted to say and needed to say, and so I did that. I don't have another one of those in me yet, but I think that I will in the future, and then I will probably go back and write another one. So I really think you got to do what you need to do as an artist, you know?
Was that your first novel, the literary fiction piece?
No, that was my seventh, and then I'd written 6 before that, so I wrote that one, and then I started writing the Underrealm novels.
And my first one's a literary fiction novel as well. I wanted it to be something else. I searched high and low for another genre for it, but it didn't fit anything.
Right.
And I like science fiction and fantasy, and the macabre. I like the dark fantasy or literary forms as well.
Yeah.
I float all over the place.
And I will say that from a business perspective, from a marketing and selling and building your audience and turning it into a career, sticking with one genre, absolutely the fastest way to go on that, and the quote unquote easiest. It's still not easy, but it is a lot easier than genre hopping. But then you look at the guys from self-publishing podcasts, they genre hop and they do great. So
what do you mean, genre hopping with podcasts?
Oh, no. Are you familiar with the self-publishing podcast?
No. Oh, maybe I am. No, I'm not actually.
Okay, so that is the podcast that got me started as a writer in the first place. The hosts are Sean Platt, Johnny B. Truant, and David Wright. And so they write a bunch of different things. Now, Sean and Dave co-write, and they only write horror. I think they have dabbled in some other stuff, but they are horror, and they have their horror fans. And then Sean and Johnny also co-write, and they write, I would say, a majority sci-fi, but they also write comedy, and they write romance, and they write all kinds of different stuff. And they talk about this on their show all the time, but it took them a lot longer to get going, but they're going now, and they're successful at it, and they genre hop. And that's what they would not be happy if they just relegated themselves to, we're only going to write alien invasion stories, because alien invasion is their biggest, their series called Invasion is their biggest series. But if they just stuck to that, they'd be miserable. So they hop around and they write a bunch of different stuff, and they're good at it, you know?
Yeah, I mean, that's what I worry about as well, getting stuck into something. A lot of the authors that I talk to they've got this mindset of, I've got to write a series, and I've got to stick to the series, and I've got to write a second book and a third book and keep going with that. And regardless of whether they're being successful with it, it seems like they're just constantly pounding out these series. And I'm like, wow, so you're good with that, and you don't want to write anything else. That's what I worry about. That's what I mean. I enjoy just getting into a story and not knowing where it's going to go until, page whatever.
Yeah, see, I'm very much not like, I am not just a plotter, but I've never met anybody or been told that anybody else has met anybody who plots in more detail. Like, if I'm going to write a 90,000 word book, my outline will usually be 25,000 to 30,000 words. Like,
wow.
It is super, super, super detailed. And that's actually the case for my series as well. My series are planned out 6-10 books in the future. I have, and they're not all plotted out to that degree like right now, but I know, like, what's going forward in the future. And then when I sit down with each individual book, I plot it out in just explicit detail. Pantsing is just not, it's not for me. But of course, lots of people pants, and some of my favorite books were pantsed. So like, it's not, there's absolutely nothing wrong with it. I do think that if you are going for the, I want to get a career off the ground as fast as possible, single genre, single series is the fastest way to do that. But if that's not the way that you like to write, if that's not the way that you enjoy writing, it's not going to be good. It's just not. Like, you're not going to turn out a good book that way if that's not the way you like creating. And also, even just writing a series, like I started writing this series and things took off after book 3, but things didn't took off. I write books. I swear I do. No, but
Oh
things
wait,
didn't
I've
take
already
off.
fumbled over my own tongue like several times starting this thing, so that's okay.
Yeah, but things didn't take off just because the third book came out. They took off because the third book came out and I started marketing it well and intelligently and effectively, and I got lucky with a couple of book bubs, and that's when it took off.
By that point, though, you're what, 10 novels into your career?
Right. Yeah.
Yes. I mean, that's interesting. And also, going back to the way that you write with the outline, wouldn't you say that you're pantsing the ever-living crap out of the outline itself before you even start throwing the 90,000 actual words into it?
Right.
Right?
No, it's
No?
like, no, because the way that I outline, are you familiar with the snowflake method?
I've heard of it, absolutely. But
Okay,
I'd
so
love for you to go over it again, though.
yeah, so the way that the snowflake method basically works is that you write a sentence that is your entire book, and then you break that sentence into a 4-sentence paragraph, and then you break that 4-sentence paragraph into a 4-paragraph page, and then that page into a 4-page, summary. And once I've gotten to that stage, then I start breaking it down by the save the cat beats, and I work those into the outline. And then once I've taken that, that's when I just go through it from beginning to end and flesh it out with the outline. So like, I'm never, the very first thing that I do is I conceive the entire book from beginning to end in a 1-sentence thing. So I'm never really, I am constantly inventing things to like fill in holes and to be like cool action beats and whatnot, but it's never really sort of free writing discovery about what's going to happen next. You know what I mean? It's more like, how, like, I'm at point A, I know I need to get to point B, and more importantly, my characters need to get to point B. What needs to happen to them, or what decisions do they need to make to get to that next point, and what else can I throw in along the way that's going to make the reader go, oh, okay, that's pretty cool, you know?
I can't even lie. I do not do that. I mean, I have taken a short, I've taken a short fiction piece that was completely pantsed and started breaking it apart, but never in terms of a sentence and then starting out and finishing with 90,000 words.
Yeah, and
what was
a
the
lot of people, that doesn't work for them. I've outlined, like, people are like, what's your process? And so I've made multiple YouTube videos on how it works, and I've had the same people who are like, what's your process? I want to learn your process. They then watch the video and they write me back afterwards, and they're like, yeah, I tried that. That doesn't work for me.
Well, I just finished a science fiction novel that had a totally different scope at the very beginning of it. Everything that I started out with got cut, and now I'm 70,000 words with something completely
Yeah.
advanced from beginning to end. I kept going back and adding chapters to the beginning to build up what I'd already written. So I don't know. I'd love to try this method. What was the sentence for your first novel? Do you remember?
Oh, well, see, my first novel, I'm constantly refining sort of my outline process. So my first novel was originally actually a series of novellas.
Oh, that's right.
And
Okay.
yeah, so it was a trilogy of novellas that I then sort of just condensed into a single book, because novellas, novellas definitely have a use. I was not using them correctly, and so it just made sense to have it as a single novel. And so those outlines I did sort of pants the outline, and then expand it from there. Yeah.
What's the use of a novella in your mind and your thinking?
Okay, so they're really good as extra backstory for existing readers. So if
Oh,
I,
okay.
and actually I am doing this in the very, very near future, but like I have my fans of my series and they want to know more about this character. That
Mhm.
character is not going to get their own book. They're not going to get their own series, but I can write a little novella and that's a bonus for them. Novellas are really great as a freebie for your email list. If somebody, if you can come up with a convincing and a compelling hook for your novella and a cool cover and everything, and somebody's like, I would like to read this story, can be a great giveaway for your email list. I just give away the first book in my series.
A lot of people
But
do that. Yeah.
yeah, but a novella can totally work as well.
But you were
Um,
giving away the chapters as you were developing them initially with the first novel of your series, right? You were putting them on your website. Am I correct?
of my first novel?
Yeah.
No, was I? It's been a
No,
long
I
time.
what did you I thought you well, the one video that I watched and then I got distracted by my tech issues said that you were publishing the stories as a series, as a serial.
Serial. Yeah.
Yeah.
So that was so okay. So I do this thing which started with Nightblade, which is the first Underrealm book. I do this thing called Vlog a Novel. And basically what I do is are you familiar with Twitch? Twitch, the
I
website?
am Yes I am. I've used it once or twice, but not a lot.
Yeah. So for anybody who doesn't really know, Twitch is basically where people play video games and they broadcast the video games that they're playing online, and people watch them and give them money. They literally are professional video game players. Now, of course, there are many thousands of people using the website who aren't at a professional level. They just do it so that they can hang out with people online. I started doing that when I write my books, and I share my screen. I show the words as I'm writing them. I show the
Oh,
whole
that's so
outlining
fascinating.
process. Yeah, so for each book in the Underrealm series, there's like 40 to 60 to 80 hours of video of me creating it from beginning to end. So in that sense, it is on there, and somebody could theoretically watch and read the book that way. But that is more to share the creative process and also to make me feel less completely alone and isolated when I'm writing a book, which is a major problem for a lot of people.
Oh, I
And
love it.
also,
That's why I write. I love the
right.
isolation.
I'm not. I'm. I'm not just an extrovert. I'm the opposite of an introvert. I kind of need to be around people. And the other thing is that it keeps me working. When people are literally watching my computer screen, I'm not going to screw around on Facebook, you know?
Yeah. Well,
So
I need to screw around all over the place while I'm writing. It's amazing that I even get anything done. What kind of impact is that getting for you? You have an audience, and what kind of
I
audience is it per like session?
Yeah, I do. I usually have anywhere between 10 and 20 people watching when I stream,
Interesting.
which is actually I also stream video games, and I get way more people watching my writing than watching my video games.
Okay.
Probably
Wow.
because I'm more
Really?
successful. Yeah, yeah.
Oh.
Probably because I'm more successful as a writer than as a gamer. I'm very casual.
What
But
kind of games are you playing on Twitch?
pretty much the only game I play is Heroes of the Storm. It's a
Oh,
MOBA.
okay. Oh, yeah, I know
Yeah,
it from Blizzard. I've played it once, I think. I was more into the WoW experience.
yeah, I like WoW. I don't have a group, and also the thing about WoW is that it definitely begins, but it never ends.
Yeah.
And Heroes is like sitting down and playing a game. Well, what's a comp? It's like playing a board game that takes 15 minutes, and then if you want, you can play another game, but also you can just sort of stop. You know,
What's the other one is like that too.
League of Legends.
Yes, no, through Blizzard. It's
Uh,
relatively new. I
oh,
can't remember.
Overwatch.
Overwatch, yeah, it's kind of
Yeah,
like
but
that as
see,
well.
right. That's a first person shooter though, and I just don't like first
Oh,
person shooters. I tried Overwatch and it's a great game. The character design and the world building is amazing, although
people
none of
get
that's a
addicted to it. I've never
oh
played it.
yeah.
I think there's a cost to it. I'm not sure though.
Yeah, there's an upfront. But I love the characters, I love the world, I love the design. I just don't like first person shooters. You know, I played it and I just don't get that. I don't get any real satisfaction out of playing it. I can feel myself I can feel the dopamine hits from
Mhm.
succeeding in the video game, which they design into it very carefully. But I finish each match and I'm like, okay. Whereas like I finish some games of Heroes of the Storm and I'm running around my office just going like, yes.
That's awesome. As far as your audience while you're writing, do they interact with you? Do they
Yeah.
engage with you and say, hey, that would be better, blah, 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 or whatnot?
So a lot of people when they first show up do stuff like that. They say, "Oh, that's a typo or a misspell," or like, "What about this idea instead?" And they are quickly notified that that is not what I want in the stream at all. If
Do you
any,
notify them, or do you have some kind of bot that pops up and says no, critiquing the work?
I do have some mods who generally let them know, or I'll just tell them, and I explain that it's just that this is my creative process, and I'm okay with putting down wrong things. I'm okay with typos right now because that's gonna come out in the post-production process. And a lot of people are like, well, if I can't comment on what you're doing, then I don't want to be here. And I'm like, I wouldn't want to write a stream either. I don't know why you're here.
Right? You should be a fan, buddy. It's very interesting because it reminds me of Andy Weir's process when he was writing The Martian.
Right.
And I always felt like that would have been a fascinating experience, except he had a website already gone up and he was working off of, I guess, the success of The Egg, which I know you're familiar with that.
The Egg. No.
Oh my God, everybody I talk to doesn't know it. I'm sending you a link right now. It's what started Andy Weir's career. I actually had one of my guests once read it out loud, and I have that version on my YouTube channel, but I will send it to you. Oh, it's fantastic though. It's one of those death fantasy stories.
I think I just pulled it up.
Okay, great. Yeah.
That's cool.
This story got published and translated in 25 different languages.
Whoa.
And it came out before the Martian. So I mean, it's just that one boom. So I mean, you had 7 novels already written when you were starting your epic fantasy series. Did that audience follow you into your first novel experience, or were you still kind of developing an audience at that point?
Yeah, I was going to say the answer is what audience?
Yeah, okay.
So before I started writing the Underrun books, I had never made more than $300 in a single month. By the time of the 3rd book, I had never made more than $600 in a single month. And then after the 3rd book, and then turning the first 3 books into a box set, the next month I made 25, and the next month after that I made 10 grand. And
Wow.
since then, and since then I got a book bub. That's very important to note. But I got a book bub, and since then,
I'm sorry, what is a book bub?
Oh, dude.
I know,
oh my
right?
gosh.
I don't know anything.
Okay, so book bub is the most wonderful and the most awful thing in all of indie publishing. So they're a book promotion website. They have huge email lists for every single genre. Nobody has bigger email lists. I know I sound like a certain political figure right now, but nobody has them. They're the biggest email list ever. They're the best.
They're the best email lists. Nobody has better email lists.
Nobody. Ask anyone. Except in this case, it's actually not a lie. So sorry, I'm not going to do that anymore, I promise. But
no, you can do that as much as you want. I'm happy to know your politics. And
well, anybody who's watched my YouTube channel gets a sense of my politics real quick. But
I thought I saw that a little bit.
Yeah. So
anyway, BookBub.
Yeah. So you submit to BookBub when you put your book on sale, and they'll take sales of $2.99, $1.99, 99 cents, or free. And if they accept you for an advertisement in their email, it's hundreds of dollars, depending on the genre and depending on the deal. It can be more than $1,000, and you will make your money back so much. Like my first BookBub ad, I think cost me $450, and in that month I made 10 grand after I had never made more than $1,000.
Jesus, how did that feel?
Oh boy, there was a lot of happy talk and laughing, and also some crying. Like I had been working at this for like 3 or 4 years, and it just sometimes felt like it was never going to happen. And my wife was, like finally vindicated for being so supportive and everything. Mm-hmm. But the thing about BookBub is that they are real hard to get a promotion with. You can't just be like, I want to place an ad, here's $500. You say, I would like to submit an ad and I'm willing to pay you $500 or $600. Please accept me. And they accept probably less than 1% of all submissions. Now, obviously, if they don't accept you, you don't pay. It's not one of those scams, right?
Yeah. Okay. Or you
but
pay
they
the money
don't.
and then they assess you and say, no.
No, none of that, none of
Yeah,
that.
okay.
But they don't accept. And so now, as we're talking, I haven't had a book bub in 15 months. Last year, I got four. One, two, three. Yeah, I got no. I've had four total. Three were last year. One of them was the year before that. But then I haven't had one in 15 months. So they're real friggin' hard to get into, and you can't plan your career around them.
Mm-hmm.
But if you ever do get one, it's like strap yourself onto the rocket because this is going to be real good.
So it behooves somebody who has a novel that's ready to be read to send something in and just to see what happens.
Yeah, and that's what every time BookBub or every time a representative of BookBub ends up on a podcast, the host is always like, okay, so come on, seriously, how do I get how do we get BookBubs? Like, what do we do? What do we do different? What do we do wrong? And they're always like, just keep submitting and keep like, sorry, but we are super exclusive and we've got algorithms that tell us like what books to accept, and a book that is not good this month might be amazing next month. And also there's the human factor. So like, somebody might read your thing and be like, right now it doesn't feel like the right time, but tomorrow it might feel like the right time. Just keep submitting, which is so frustrating.
Yeah, it is actually. I do a lot of short fiction submissions, and it seems like that's the case as well, where the human factor is interrupting the actual publishing of my short story. It's like, why?
Yeah.
What's the reason? So I can at least come at the story a different angle or something.
Yeah.
But then
And
you're done, right? You submit it one time and you can't submit it again.
No. You can submit it over and over.
With short fiction.
Oh, right. Yeah.
With like the same publisher or whatever, Clarkesworld.
Yeah, exactly. And it's the sort of thing where like I thought, so my first book bub got 10 grand in 1 month and 8 grand the next month, which was like very clearly still, like benefiting from all of the benefit in the Amazon algorithm and whatnot. And then two of my book bubs last year made 30 grand, had 30 grand months. So I was like, clearly BookBub sees me as a good investment. Clearly they're going to accept me and take me all the time now. Nope. Just not at all true or accurate. And they've also changed their rules so that like I'm Amazon exclusive, and they are much more reluctant to take Amazon exclusive books than they used to be. So that's another factor. It's a whole bunch of stuff. So I just have built up my marketing efforts. Well, I should say that my wife has, to the point where we're not relying on BookBub to make a living anymore.
What is the percentage of people that get your hands on your novel through BookBub that are retained as fans going forward or readers going forward?
That's really, really hard to tell because you can't really tell who bought Mystic that bought it from a BookBub. My overall read through on my first book to the second book is 55 or 60%, between 55 and 60. So that's pretty good for one book to the second.
And does that mean people who actually finish the book on Kindle or something like that?
That's straight up sales. So
that's straight up sales. Okay.
Yeah, so for every 100 people who buy the book, about between 55 and 60 go and buy the second one, whether they read it or finish it or whatever. But then, as is usual with series, like, so the second book is like 55%, but then the read through to book 3 is like between 70 and 80. And then once they get to from like book 4 to book 5, it's like 90%. Like when somebody gets that far in, they're not just gonna stop,
Yeah, their flipping pages is pretty hardcore.
Right.
And it's pretty much everybody who goes to book 2 is buying book 3 and book 4.
Exactly.
That's fascinating.
Yeah.
So your wife is handling your marketing right now.
Yeah, so she was our main source of income for the first 2.5 years that I was writing. And then when it actually started to work and actually make some money, she was able to she'd been running a daycare, which she was very good at, and but she was also kind of exhausted all the time. So she closed the daycare. Our kids finally got old enough to go to school, and so now she's my business partner, and she handles essentially all of the business side of things while I take care of most of the creative and the publishing and working with authors side of things.
Oh, interesting. So what do you mean working with authors? You're reading, or what are you doing with other authors?
So we have just signed 4 and will soon have increased that number to 6 authors who are going to be writing book series in the same world in Underrealm. Yeah.
Interesting. Taking advantage of fan fiction, is that what's happening, or are you enlisting people from outside who potentially
Enlisting.
never enlisting?
Yeah.
Oh, great.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Now the first four people are yeah. So the first four people are all people who have been part of my community. They have been watching my writing streams. They've been they've been beta readers and whatnot, and they've all been aspiring authors on their own. And
Mhm.
I was like, hey, so I know that you're, also a writer. You mind sending me something that you've written? And some of them have actually some of them have published their own books already and are trying to get their careers off the ground. Some of them are still in the creative process or in the editing process or whatever. But I took four people whose writing I saw was like, hey, this is actually really, really good. And I said,
Mhm.
would you be interested in signing to write an Underrealm story? And then some of them, three of them right now are working on full book series just like mine, just as real and valid and canon as mine, and full length novels. And then we're also starting a series of short stories, which I want to do periodically, like 2 or 3 times a year,
Mhm.
which is going to be our primary method of acquiring new authors, because with these people, right, like we're not at the state where we can offer advances, right? So with these people, they're also indie authors. They understand how it works, and they know that they're going to be writing these book series, and it's going to be a long length of time, and they're not going to get paid for it until the books are out and selling, at which point they will hopefully get compensated very well for it, and they get that. For people who I don't know as well, who I don't have as close a relationship with, it's much easier to go, hey, here's this world. If something about it intrigues you, or if you have some idea for a story that can work in here, why don't you write a short story between 5 and 10,000 words, or pitch an idea to me before you write it. Write the story, we'll publish it, and you get a share of the sales to my audience. And so that is a way that we can find new authors. And if they publish their first story and it works, maybe they want to publish another one. And after they've done 2 or 3 of those, then the idea of doing a book series with no advance doesn't seem so crazy. Or maybe by that point we will be to the point where we can offer advances, because I would love to do that. I would love
Right.
to.
I
Yeah.
mean, there's nothing better than getting a paycheck.
Yep.
Especially if we're doing something that you love to do anyway,
Yeah.
entertaining with your writing. I noticed that on your mission statement actually shows up on Google when you search your name still. Unfortunately,
Really?
the website does. Yeah, well, it's so cool actually. When you search Garrett Robinson, it shows up. Boom, there's your bio kind of, and in that it says you can't become successful by writing a book every 2 or 3 years or something along those lines.
Oh, that press page. Yeah.
And it sounds like that's what you're kind of striving for, keeping your IP out there. And
Yes. Yeah, I think that certainly if you're part of the traditional industry, you totally can. I mean, George R. R. Martin is one of the richest authors out there, and
yeah, I mean, how long has it been since he published a book series?
it's been a while. So, but
Or what's his name? Patrick Rufus. Oh my God, that guy.
yeah, and both of them amazing writers. And if that's the
Mhm.
process that works for them, I used to be so against traditional publishing, against the industry as a whole, and I thought that any author who signed with a traditional publisher was just shooting themselves in the foot and being an idiot. I guess I think that I've grown up a lot since having that opinion. I've just studied a lot of traditional authors. I find out how they work. I find out what works for them. I find out what help their publishers have been. Great example is John Green, actually.
Mhm.
He has told stories in his videos and at live events and on his podcast about the original ending that he wrote for The Fault in Our Stars, and it was awful. It was
Oh
so,
really?
and he said this in the story, and his publisher was like, "Nope, no, you're not doing this." And so he fixed it and he changed it, and like so, fair play to that. For indies, I don't know. I would love to get to the point where I have a big enough audience that a book a year would be fine. But even then, I don't want to take a year to write a book. It doesn't take me that long, and this is all that I do. I don't I'm not doing this around a 9-to-5 job. And unlike a lot of traditionally published authors, I'm not like also a college professor or something like that.
Oh my God, Mark Lawrence is a college professor, isn't he? And he still puts out tons of stuff. Mark Lawrence, Brandon Sanderson is a college professor.
Yeah.
And he has a podcast, and he's so multifaceted. It's like, dude, how are you doing this?
Yeah, that dude works hard. Yeah, I got to see him at a live event in over in Beaverton a few weeks ago, and like, dude is such a nerd. Oh my God,
really?
he's such a nerd. It's wonderful. I'm like, oh, you are my people.
What classified him as a nerd to you?
Just the way he talked, like the way that he would geek out about stuff and just get so like, there's somebody would ask him a question about like one of his books, and it was like, okay, so like, why does this person have this tattoo? And he's like, okay, well, actually, so that tattoo really came from this other society and this culture, that thing, and it developed because of a belief in the da 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 da. And I was like, oh, you're such a nerd.
That's his world too, isn't it? Where he's built it up so much where he can explain the tattoo and the meaning and the significance within the novels.
And that's my favorite thing.
Awesome.
Like when I get
world
questions
building at its best, that's finest.
Yeah. And when I get questions in my Facebook group or on an email where somebody's like, so when this person did this, like, could that kind of wizard also do this? And I'm like, well, you would think that they could, but actually there's this reason. And and then 500 words later, I realized, okay, this is probably too much. Back it off a little bit. Just restrain.
I was talking to my wife this morning in the car, dropping her off at the bus about plot.
Mm-hmm.
How easy is it for you to plot a novel in your outlines? In terms of, I know you have your world, right? And you probably have your characters, but how do you take those characters on a ride that makes your audience say, wow, I'm going to read the next book?
I'd say, yeah.
I'll let you answer. I might be intimidated to hear your answer, honestly. It's like, oh, please let it be something I can do. Go ahead and tell me. Tell me you're not a genius.
I don't think I am. So I told you that like I come up with these like my ideas way in advance. Like I know at a minimum, I know the next 3 books in every series that I'm working on. On most of them, I know way more than that. And I really do plan around the book's ending. And there's always 2 endings in every book for me. There is the ending of the plot and like hopefully some like really cool twist, or not even a twist, because like not every book needs to end with I am your father. But sometimes they need to end with oh no, oh my God, how can this possibly be resolved? And those are actually some of my favorite endings. The second book at the end of my series, The Academy Journals, the ending of that book ends with something that is so awful for the characters, and also, okay, not to spoil anything too badly, but somebody gets kidnapped, and it looks like it would be easy for others to interpret that the main character and his friends did it. And so they have to kind of cover it up and protect themselves. And the way that they cover it up and protect themselves is, for one thing, you're just like, oh no, please don't do that. Please no. And then also the person who is kidnapped, if you have read the Nightblade series, the 2 series some of the characters cross over. And so if you know the story of what happened to the character who crossed over from the Nightblade series into the Academy Journal series, then you're like, no, no. And so an ending like that, it's not a twist, but it makes the reader like, it makes their heart hurt. And so I've got the ending planned like that. And so if I know that that's the ending and that is what I want the reader to feel like, then every step of the plot is like, what will make the reader feel like that more? And then also
help, doesn't it, in terms of writing, to have that point to aim for.
Yes.
That bullseye where you got your arrow pulled back, you're like, I'm gonna hit that thing. It's like, if you're just shooting off into the air, it's like, oh, okay, this doesn't end.
Right. And that's what I try to avoid. So I do kind of work from the ending backwards. And so, Some authors say that that is evil and that is a pox upon the publishing industry and is the absolute wrong way to write anything that's good or worth a damn. But like, you know, Tolkien did it, and The Lord of the Rings was the best-selling non-religious book of all time until Harry Potter came along. So, and like we all knew how Harry Potter was going to end. So like,
The
you
interesting
know,
thing about Harry Potter is every single book ended at the school year, and then he went
yeah,
off to do his normal thing. It wasn't like it was exciting. You
right,
knew by June or whatever the school year was going to be over with that the story was going to be over with.
right.
And then whatever was going to happen, and he was going to live because there were 7 books. The only time that you really doubted there was going to be a Harry Potter into the future was book 7, when he did die but was resurrected or whatnot.
Spoiler alert.
Yeah. Oh, sorry about that, guys. It's only a book that's been out for 10 years or.
Oh no. We're
It's such a
doing.
crazy world that we live in, huh? Where you could spoil something that has been out for like decades. It's like, I was gonna watch that this weekend.
And then there's the whole thing where like they've done studies and actually people don't enjoy a movie less if they know the spoilers, but do it. We're doing the thing right now where we're listening to the Harry Potter audiobooks with my kids, and then every time we finish one of the books, we go and watch the movie. And just the other day, we watched The Half-Blood Prince, and when Dumbledore died, my daughter lost it. She was sobbing on my chest, and I was like, "Oh no, I have done something bad."
Oh no! How old is your daughter?
She's just about to turn 8.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you did the audiobooks instead
Yeah.
of, and I think that they'll read them eventually on their own too, won't they?
Oh, for sure. And my daughter actually has been reading the first one. She's just, like I mean, she reads slower than a professional voice actor reads it out loud. And also the most time that we have is driving them to and from school or driving to and from Portland. So it's just really easy to pop in an audiobook and it keeps them from killing each other. So that's nice.
Portland's a nice town. So you're in Oregon.
Yeah.
I lived in Olympia for a little while, Washington. I love that area of the country.
It's so nice. Although my wife and I lived in Los Angeles our whole lives. And so we have just been told by our doctors that, hey, we know that you're new up here, but you really need to be taking vitamin D, like a lot of vitamin D, because your bodies need that right now. And yeah.
I got told that my vitamin D was deficient as well. And I started taking vitamin D and they yelled at me, stop taking it right now. You're poisoning yourself with vitamin D. Okay, well, make up your minds. Make up your minds. I love the cloudiness. I love the rain.
Yeah.
In fact, I would get disappointed in the summertime when it would be called blue skies and beautiful out. It's like, what is this?
Yeah.
It's horrible. Give me a low ceiling sky.
Yeah, we're right there with you.
Yeah. So Los Angeles. You were born and raised in Los Angeles?
Yep.
And what made you move to the Pacific Northwest other than the absolute beauty? Did you just decide
Well, Los Angeles did.
Oh yeah.
Born and raised there doesn't mean I like it. It's you know what? Los Angeles is a fine place. There are so many good people there, and that's the one thing that I miss is like the people that I knew there and my friends. It is also kind of awful. There's lots of really good people there. There's lots of really bad people there. It is, in my opinion, if people like desert vistas, that's fine. In my opinion, Los Angeles is ugly as hell. And
I was surprised. I've only been a few times, and once you drive down the hill from like Normanville or something like that, and it turns all green and beautiful, I was like, wow, this is not what I expected.
In Los Angeles? What do you mean?
No, you drive. Maybe I was over by the beach, Venice Beach area, and I just thought it was
the beach. Sure. If you want to pay real estate
place.
prices and rent that's higher than New York City, absolutely go live on the LA beaches. They're fantastic.
Oh my God. And then you'd pass beautiful women and they would smile at you in the car. I was like, what the hell is this? And I'm from New York. So, I mean, I just get scowled at all the time. Everybody scowls at you. The homeless people scowl at you. The rich people scowl at you. The other poor people scowl at you.
Yeah.
You just feel bad about yourself all the time. But there it's like, oh, that beautiful blonde lady just smiled at me and I was randomly driving by her.
Yeah. No, it's very chill. It's very laid back, but also it's very easy to spend time there and start to feel like everybody wants to get something out of you. And
well, they do, don't they? They don't know who you are, and they hope that you might have something for them.
Totally. And I'll tell you, if you're in LA and you buy somebody a drink, everybody in the bar is like, what's that guy? Why is he buying somebody a drink? Is he rich? Is he a producer? He's a producer. I'm gonna go talk to him. Like it's kind of crazy. And here's the thing, growing up, living on my own, married to my wife, I could handle LA. I could handle the level of crazy that LA brings to your life. Kids bring a whole nother level of crazy to your life. And the crazy of kids and the crazy of LA does not add, it multiplies. And it just was too much. And so I actually wanted to move to Austin, which is a city that I love. And my wife wanted to move to Oregon. And I was like, what's in Oregon? And she said, well, let me take you up there. So she took me up here and I was like, oh, Oregon is in Oregon. Yeah, no, this is fine. This is wonderful.
It's beautiful up there. I've been through it 2 or 3 times. It's so gorgeous. I've been through Texas too. So I think you're a little crazy if you want to move to Austin, except for the barbecue.
But see, Austin is not like Texas. You know, it is on, well, it's technically a lake, but it's really a river, and it's green, and politically, it could not be more different from the rest of Texas. Austin's awesome. Like, Megan has been to Texas, but she's been to Dallas and Houston.
Yeah, I lived in Dallas for a year. Dallas is horrible.
Yeah, and she was like, no, I don't want to live in Texas. And I was like, but Austin isn't, and I still love Austin. I still try to visit when I can. But yeah, it's Oregon for me for the foreseeable future.
And my wife is very afraid of any state that lets you carry a gun.
Yeah.
In terms of Los Angeles, though, getting back to that and being a producer, I mean, it kind of sounds like you might be aiming towards getting stuff into film or even other mediums that Los Angeles would be quite helpful with.
Well, we didn't really get into this, but I am a filmmaker. And that's
interesting.
That's actually my thing. I wanted to be a writer when I was a teenager, and then once I graduated high school, I was working on writing, and through a wild variety of circumstances, I ended up working at a sound studio that also had a film team, a documentary film team, and I got assigned to work with the film team for 2 months, and I was traveling around working on a film set, and I said, oh no, this is my thing. And so filmmaking became my thing. It became my passion. And I have made a bunch of films, never any features, just, web films, short films, that kind of stuff. That is my happy place. That is the thing that I love more than anything else. It's the thing that I want to, if I could, if somebody was like, yo, full-time directing job right now, making films that you actually like and believe in and earning a living, I would be like, cool, I need to find somebody to continue the Underrealm books because I'm going to go do this other thing that is like what I really want to do. So the ultimate goal is absolutely turning Underrealm into film or television. And actually next year, we are going to start making our first film properties, because now you can actually self-publish films on Amazon just like you can self-publish books. And I am going to start making very small scale, very short, very low budget Underrealm properties and put them up there and see if people want to watch them. Because if they do, oh man, yeah, I'll be happy.
How are you already producing scripts? Or are you going to wing it, or how are you going to do that?
I have a wide variety of scripts. I have, in terms of the Underrealm scripts, I have 2 that are in various stages of being rewritten or whatever, and then I've got ideas for a whole bunch more. One thing that we're planning on doing is in this new short stories series that we're launching, if any of the stories individually just sort of like take off, if one of them becomes like way more popular than the other, then we want to take a look at it and be like, would that make a good short film? Because if so, let's do it, man.
What's holding you back now?
The usual stuff, time, money. I have a whole film crew down in LA. I would want to bring them up here. That's quite a consideration. If I had my exact situation where I am right now, but I was still in Los Angeles, I could put together a crew and a cast in 5 minutes. And I can always travel down to LA and do that, but like LA doesn't look like I want it to look, and it's a pain in the ass to shoot in LA and blah, 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 blah. I want to do it up here, and also like I want to keep things going the way that they are with my family and, you know, everything like that. Like right now, we're getting the books to the point where everything is stable. We've got a predictable release schedule. You know, I want to finish getting that going, and I want to get the new authors publishing and everything like that before we start in on the film projects.
That's the frustrating part, isn't it? Because you would think that actors are everywhere, film professionals are everywhere, but that's not the case. It's hard to find people like that in other places in the world.
They are, but you have to insert yourself in that community. Just like, and here's the thing is, in LA, they might be thick on the ground, but you still have to insert yourself in the community to find the people that are good and who are good to work with. Because if I can get a guy who's got if I can get a director of photography who's got a skill level of 8, and he's just amazing to work with and like not a pain in the ass, and I can get a guy with a skill level of 10 and he is a jackass, I'll take the guy who's a skill level of 8 every single time. I am particularly blessed in that my favorite director of photography, who I have worked with multiple times, is like, he would probably not say he's a 10, but to me, he's a 10. And in terms of working with him, dude, I love the guy. Like, I love the guy with like a brother. Unfortunately, he doesn't even live in LA anymore. He moved back to his home of Hawaii. So
oh wow, that just makes things a lot harder, doesn't it?
yeah, so now I have to find a new one of those, and it takes time.
And that's like one of the most important parts of filmmaking too, is the actual visualization of the thing that you're photographing. Yeah. I mean, you could be a director, you could be a great director, you could put everything together the right way, but if you don't film it the right way, it looks so bad. Totally. And then there's sound too, right? I mean, all these technical things that you can't do. Yep. I would love to make film. Film is exciting to me, but I don't know if I could work in a team environment, because I think I don't know if I've already rubbed so many people the wrong way. I know I would do it again.
Right. And that's the thing. That's the wonderful thing about writing. And that's why I diverted. When I first started writing, all that genre hopping, that was taking scripts that I'd already written and turning them into books. Because the thing was when you want to go out and make a film, you can have a script and somebody can be like, that's a great script, and actors can read it and be like, I love it. But if somebody with money, if you can't get on the phone with somebody with money, it's never going to happen. Whereas in writing, you don't need money at all. You can just say, and then a nuclear explosion happens. There's no CG, there's no pyrotechnics, there's no nothing. So yeah, it's
So Amazon's producing independent films, is what you were saying.
Well, they're producing their own stuff, but you can literally just go self-publish. It's called, what is it called? Amazon Video Direct. Let me see here. Yeah, videodirect.amazon.com. I've already published a film on it. It makes hardly any money. It's a very sort of literary drama, so it's not something that like is a huge seller or anything like that. But it makes money. I get money from the film every month, you know.
It's very interesting. I mean, in terms of being able to do that on your own and in the indie world as well, I always consider this slush pile of other people doing the exact same thing. Mm-hmm. And then you kind of get buried by it. But you have seemed to push yourself beyond that and exceed in ways that other people can only imagine doing. I understand you said what is it called? I wrote it down because I'm definitely going to use it. BookBub helped you out a lot. But do you think anything else adds to the definition of your success?
Yep. Yes. The other big thing is an email list. You've probably heard this if you listen to other publishing podcasts.
That's one of those things people talk about, email lists.
Yeah. And see, that's the thing is like, my books do exist in a slush pile, but to 16,000 people, they don't. My books are a thing that they already know that they like, that they want. So now when I publish a book, I don't immediately sell 16,000 copies, but I let those people know. A few thousand of them go and buy it. Others trickle in, over time and whatever. And if I can get up to the point where I'm publishing a book every 2 or 3 months, and I'm selling 10,000 copies of each book, I mean, I'm doing real well, you know.
I just did a podcast on the Wool guy that I do another podcast where I talk about speculative fiction, and he makes about $100,000 a month just
Yeah.
off of his book sales, and he has nobody to owe it to. I mean, he's doing
Yeah.
it all on his own. He lives on a catamaran circling
Yeah.
the globe. That's like, dude, I hate you.
Yeah. Yeah, he was a really awesome guy. He does a lot of really good work for the indie community. He's got a website that he created called the Author Earnings Report, where he works with a data guy and mines Amazon for data. And that report is invaluable for learning what trends are happening and everything like that.
Okay, I'm writing that down again, but I missed what you said. What'd you say?
Author Earnings Report .com, if I'm not mistaken. But if you just Google Author Earnings Report, yeah, it's a quarterly report, I think it is, and it's just real good data for anybody who's an indie author or a traditional author, I guess.
Would you
Yeah.
recommend aiming for something on that list? I mean, I know, I love prompts and challenges, writing challenges and prompts and things like that. And when I look for anthologies or, contests or whatever, I'll aim a story directly for it. But would you
what list? Sorry, what do you mean?
The oh my God, my brain is like not working. The author-earnings-report.com.
Oh, no, that's not. Oh, okay. Sorry, go ahead.
Well, I mean, if you go on there and you see something is actually trending, popular, would you recommend somebody write a novel towards that goal to be successful?
No. Okay, so that's not what. So the Author Earnings Report is not about. It's not about genre. It's not about anything. You really have to kind of, I guess, like look at it to see it. But just as an example, so it does look like it's maybe quarterly, but for some reason, the most recent report I can see on here is February of this year. They have a blog which has more data, but it's like, okay, what percentage of Amazon sales are ebook? What percentage are print? How many of the sales are from the US? How many are from traditional? How many are from indie? How many are novellas? How many are short stories? How many are this? How many are that? How much money are you earning if you're at this sales rank? It's not like, I mean, there is some discussion of like this genre's doing well, this genre's doing better, but like the whole like right to market thing, like write what's popular right now. Oh, vampire romance is really popular. I'll write a vampire romance novel.
It doesn't break that down.
It might give you some clues to that direction. I think that is literally the worst thing you can possibly do as a creative, because you're not creating something because you love it or because you believe in the story. You're doing it for money. And to be frank, you're probably not going to be successful because readers are going to be able to tell that you are pandering to them and you're like, I don't know, aren't the protagonist and his girl supposed to screw in this scene? All right, let's do that. They'll be able to tell. And even if you're able to fool them, you're not going to be able to fool them forever. And even if you're able to fool them for a long enough time that it's worth it to you, like, what's the point? Oh, you earned some money? Dude, you can go make way more freaking money in the financial sector, and it's easier to learn how to do it. It just is. Like,
in terms of that,
yeah,
satisfying, people actually make a pretty decent living writing for other people's IPs, though, like game writers and things like that.
Yeah, but have you ever listened to the guys at Telltale Games when they talk about writing for Game of Thrones? Like, they're blown out of their minds that they get to do it.
They're fans.
And you can tell, like, there's games that come out with like awful dialogue, and there's games that come out with just really bad writing, and you can tell the people are like, I'm a writer and I'm too good for this crap, and I'm just going to toss down some dialogue that will fill in the required time that I'm supposed to put into this game. And why build yourself a life like that? If you want to be a video game writer, be the best goddamn video game writer you can and do something different. Bring something new to it, you know? I'm not sitting here just trying to write Tolkien. I'm definitely inspired by Tolkien. I'm trying to bring a certain feeling that Tolkien brought in me, but I'm trying to do something new and different. I mean, for one thing, I'm trying to, allow women to exist in my world. But like, you better be trying to do something with your stories. Don't just don't just sit there because like, oh, my James Bond analog is going to be the best James Bond analog there's ever been. No, like, the best James Bond analog there's ever been is James Bond. And now there's Jack Reacher, and people are like, well, he's the next James Bond. No, he's not. He's not James Bond.
He's the Jack Reacher. He's nothing like it at all.
Right, exactly. He's different, and that's why he became successful. Oh, so write another Jack Reacher? No, you're
No.
missing the point.
Yeah. But if you
And
like
I
the
get
type of
that.
story, write your own type of story like that. I mean, if
Right.
you find something simple, you find something warm and comfortable about a Jack Reacher or a James Bond type character, and not a Mary Sue. What do they call it when it's a man who can do
Gary
everything?
Stu.
Gary Stu, is that what it is?
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, that'd be fun to write, I guess, but I never end up
Yeah.
writing it because I like to challenge my characters in weird ways.
Totally. And
Yeah.
I've met so many friggin' authors at author conventions and conferences and masterminds, and they come in and they sit down and they're like, listen, here's my problem that I'm trying to solve. I love fantasy. I love sci-fi. That's what I want to write. That's what I've always wanted to write. But when I got started, romance was really big, and I saw how successful romance was and how voracious romance readers were. So I started writing romance, and now I've got my readers, and they expect a new romance book from me every month, and I don't have time to ever go and write fantasy or sci-fi. But I stayed up
Oh,
all
yeah.
night, and I worked so hard, and I finally got my first fantasy novel done, and I published it, and I told my audience about it, and they didn't go
They're
and
not
buy it.
interested. Yeah.
And now I feel like I'm stuck writing romance. And I'm like, then freaking let somebody who cares about the genre, let them write romance. Go do your thing. Like, come on.
Yeah.
That nothing irritates me more. I understand when people are like, oh crap, I've made a mistake, and it's very like troubling to me that I now need to make a new major life shift. But when people are like, my readers are just so annoying because they won't go, screw you. You know?
Yeah, that's a horrible hole to have dug yourself in terms
Yeah.
of every day you got to wake up and write romance when you don't even like romance.
Exactly. So just don't do that. Find the thing that really makes you. And you know what? Maybe you write in like 10 different genres and nothing really like there's no success and nothing makes you feel joy in the writing process. At which point like maybe it's not for you, you know?
Well, what about
Because
what if it brings you joy but no success? I mean, then what's the definition of your future? You
then
continue doing it?
I'd probably keep going on. Like if I hadn't made it towards the end of 2015, I probably would have given up sometime in the middle of 2016 because it
What
had
does
gotten to
giving
the
up mean
point.
though? Because if you
Well,
love
giving
telling stories, you're not going to stop, right? I mean, that
no, see,
is.
that's the thing is I by giving up, I had lost my job in 2013, and when I came home and told my wife, very distraught and very like, oh my God, what are we gonna do? She was like, well, you should just start writing full time. And I was like,
Wow.
what?
What a great wife.
Yeah, and you hear that story a lot. A lot of us only make it because our spouses. A lot of romance authors tell their husbands, "I really want to write romance," and they're like, "Okay, I'll shoulder things for a while," and then they become really successful, and their husband's like, "Cool, let's retire to Cancun."
Yeah,
And
I honestly I couldn't do what I'm doing if it wasn't for my wife. I mean, I don't know how people do it on their own. I mean,
yeah,
having somebody there. I mean, I have done so many podcasts where there is a successful writer and the person next to them is 100% supporting everything they do.
right.
Alpha reading, editing, making comments. I mean, just being there, holding hands and rubbing backs. I mean, it's just really important to have somebody
It
on your
is.
team.
And so I was doing it full time from early 2013 to late 2015. And if I'd gotten to the middle of 2016 and was still making less than $500 a month, I probably would have gone back and gotten a 9 to 5 job and kept writing. You know, just like I kept
Mhm.
filmmaking. When I tried to make it as a freelance filmmaker for 2 years, and I would get jobs, but I was making like less than $2,000 a month, and we had kids, and like eventually I had to get a 9 to 5 job. And so that lasted for a while, and I probably would have just gone back to that and kept doing my create because it is fulfilling. It does make me happy. But I just got really lucky and got to build a career out of it. And now that's why I've gone from author to publisher. That's why I'm signing other authors, is because I am trying to find people who don't have the advantages that I had. Either they don't have a spouse to shoulder so much of that burden for them while they're making it happen, or they don't have the advantages that I do in terms of, for lack of a better word, marketability.
Yeah, I was gonna
Um,
say marketing because that's my weakest point is I have no clue how to get myself out there.
yeah,
I
for
have
one thing,
no
a lot
clue.
of them don't want to learn how to market themselves,
I
and
feel like a
fortunately for them.
shill. That's my problem is I feel like a shill. I'm like, oh, I hate it. It makes you
Right.
so uncomfortable.
And I've got this gigantic ego, so there you go. And like, I do still feel a little weird sometimes when I come up with a new marketing idea. And if it makes me feel weird like that, I'm like, I'm not doing it. Like, if I feel weird about it, then it is so far beyond the bounds of like good taste or whatever. But you know, when I'm writing like an ad, when I'm writing copy for an ad, I just pretend that I am someone else. I pretend that I am someone working at an ad agency and their job is to sell my book. So what would that person say about Garrett Robinson? They would look at my reviews and they would read the reviews, and then they would go in the ad and they would say, readers compare this series to Robert Jordan and Brandon Sanderson. They wouldn't, like, do I personally think that I am as good as either one of those authors? Hell no. But if I were an ad copywriter working at a marketing agency, I would go look at the Amazon reviews where readers say those exact words, and I would put that in my ad, because one, you can totally back it up. There are reviews right there saying these things. And two, I want to sell the book, and I know that those words will sell the book. So that's what I would do. So like, that's one trick that people can like get over their own sort of like hesitancy on that thing, is like, if I was an ad copywriter, what factual information would I put in these ads? Or like, what praise would I give this book, not based on, not out of some nowhere, you know, where like, you know, online reviewers say this book is better than The Lord of the Rings. Nobody's ever said that. Nobody has ever said that, would ever say that. So I would never put that in one of my ads. You know what I mean? But when you are putting on your marketing hat, it is your job to sell the book. And again, like, some, you know, like a lot of authors, kind of introverted, maybe have some self-confidence issues or whatever, or maybe they just, you know, don't get how Facebook's business manager works or how ad targeting works or anything like that. And so I'm going to publish their books, I'm going to do the marketing for them, and I'm going to take a small percentage, you know, because I want to give them that career and build this world so that we're all helping each other, and, you know, basically just create the next biggest media company since Marvel. No big deal. No high.
Well, as long as you set your sights reasonably, you know what I mean? That's
totally.
that's all that matters.
Yeah.
I know we've reached about an hour and 10 minutes right now, but I did want to ask one other question before we sum up our conversation. How do you compel your readers to leave reviews, or do they just do that on their own volition?
So I have a small note in every single book that says, hey, I'd love it if you'd leave a review. And a lot of people do based off of that. I very heavily target reviews to the first book, Nightblade, because that is where everybody enters. Right.
Yeah.
That's where it starts. And I actually am in the middle of working out how to point it towards the first sort of box set, which I call a volume because it's not really a box set, but the first compilation of 3 books at once, because that's where I want to start directing more of my marketing efforts. But what I do is, when somebody signs up for my email list, I say, here's your free copy of Nightblade. And then a few days later, I send them another email that says, hope you have enjoyed Nightblade, hope you finished it. If you want, I can also give you the next book in the series for free if you will review Nightblade, and then I'll give you a copy of Mystic to review as well. And if people do that, I ask them if they want to be on my review team, which is just, you read books in exchange for leaving reviews on them. So a consequence of doing it that way, and that's where I get the vast majority of my reviews. Last I checked, Nightblade has over 1,500 reviews on Amazon.
Wow, that's very good.
Right. Now, the next book in the series, Mystic, only has 160. So, like, there's some fall off, obviously.
Obviously, yeah.
But then you see that the third book has over 100 reviews, and the fourth book has probably over 100 as well. The fifth book is, you know, getting towards 100, et cetera, et cetera. But again, first book is where you want the most reviews. So that's what I do to get my Amazon reviews.
It's interesting. And so are you. You're a fantastic conversationalist, and I thoroughly enjoyed talking with you today. I like to sum up a podcast with 3 questions. The first being, you know, you've attained so much success through hard work, obviously earned, But what do you tell somebody if they come to you and ask for advice? I know you've given me a bunch already in this conversation, but just to kind of sum it up for somebody who is looking for that little bit of mysticism from you.
Yeah. Oh boy. Well, my one thing goes back to what I was talking about earlier. Don't ever do things because they're the most marketable thing.
Mm-hmm.
Start from the art. Oh, that's a nice little catchphrase. Literally never
Start
said
from
those
the
words
art,
before.
yeah.
Start from the art. Wow. I want to make a shirt with that now. Okay.
It was on
Start
my
with the art.
podcast. I get trademarked. No, I'm joking.
Yeah, totally. No, but start with the art. Make something that you love. Make something that that matters to you, and make it like I really think you got to make it matter. I think that you can tell purely entertaining stories, but and you can tell purely entertaining stories that you love and enjoy, but that don't really matter, and they don't have the they don't have the sustainability of something that really does. And just going back to two things that we've been talking about so far, um, I think that Harry Potter really matters. I think that it's important in more of a sense than just the story and the entertainment value. I
J.K.
don't,
Rowling is part of that, right? In terms of the whole thing of Harry Potter, J.K. Rowling, the author herself, is a part of that historical, I don't know, what would you call it? I mean, her story is part of the Harry Potter series.
yeah, very much so. And on the other end of the spectrum, I don't think the Jack Reacher books matter very much. I don't think that they teach a new moral lesson. I don't think that they
They're fluff.
impart a new reality. They are really good, entertaining
They really
books.
are. I've read a few of them myself. I mean, you follow that character, like, well, I know you're not going to die because
Right.
there's thousands of books written about you, but I mean, how he gets through these horrible moments
Hmm.
because he has plot armor, right? I mean, if they're not
Yeah.
literature.
But I don't think people will be talking about Jack Reacher in 50 years. Maybe if he's still alive and still writing, but I don't think so. But I think that we'll be talking about Harry Potter in 500 years, you know?
What's interesting though is we're talking about James Bond though, Ian Fleming, and he was kind of doing that same thing.
Yeah, and you know, I haven't spent as much time analyzing James Bond, maybe, but I think that if we looked, I think that we would find something that mattered. I think that we would, you know, like I think that the deeper we look, the more sort of problems we find with things like that as well. But also, I think that he was a represent. If I had to just say right off the top of my head, without really doing careful analysis and research, I would say that maybe we didn't think England and Britain and British people were cool before James Bond. Maybe James Bond was like, hey, guess what? British people are freaking awesome. And we were like, they kind of are. Like,
Yeah.
that's actually really cool. Maybe that was it. That seems a little too small and a little too petty because he really does seem to matter to a lot of people. But
He's just like, he's a fantasy figure, isn't he? He allows men to kind of imagine themselves as this misogynistic dude that
yeah,
can do whatever he wants. Kill people at leisure, sleep with whoever he wants to, drink and eat and smoke and do whatever you want to do. He's
there's
that dude.
definitely
I
that
mean,
appeal.
right?
Yeah.
Um, Second question for you. What are you reading? What is on your night table? What's on your Kindle? What is passing through your eyeballs?
So in 2016, I tried to prioritize reading a lot of fantasy. I read the Shannara Chronicles. I reread some Robert Jordan. I read Lord of the Rings. I try to read Lord of the Rings once a year.
Interesting.
Um,
All three of them?
this, yeah, all three. This year, I decided, on the advice of my really good friend Amy Teagan, who is wonderful and who, oh shoot, well, she just published a book recently, but it's under a pen name and she doesn't want to be associated with it. It's nothing bad. It's just it's a genre that she doesn't want to be known for. So anyway, so I can't send you to the book. But Amy Teagan is amazing. She said, "So, do you ever read anything except for fantasy?" And I was like, "Well, sure, I read nonfiction." She said, "Okay." So she recommended that I flex my mental muscles or my storytelling muscles by reading things not in my genre. And so I have been reading a lot of really great books this year, thanks to her. And right now, I'm reading The Night Circus, which is a Victorian slightly fantasy, but more like magical, just like sort of small urban magic. I would say Victorian urban fantasy romance, but
Interesting. Okay.
really it's literary. It's very literary fiction. It's not plot driven. It's not any of those things, and it is. Oh, it's very good. It's delightful. It's just the wordplay and the description and the emotion and the characterization. It's just, ooh, it's quite good. So The Night Circus, highly recommended.
Okay, fantastic. And my last question for you would be, how can people find you? Where would you like them to start their search?
Definitely don't go to garrettbrobinson.com, since, as we have discovered on this show, that website is down. Underrealm.net. Underrealm, the two words put together, .net is where you can find all of the books of Underrealm, which are, like, let's be frank, those are the only books of mine that you should be reading. And if you go to the homepage, underrealm.net, just the basic page on the site, you can get the first book, Nightblade, for free if you sign up for my email list. And then if you sign up for my email list and you don't enjoy the book and you don't want to stick around, like, literally no problem. That happens all the time. People are always like, well, I want to sign up, but then if I don't, read the book, I don't want to be taking up space on your email list, because you pay when you have like a certain number of subscribers. And I was like, then just go. Like, seriously, I remove people from my list all the friggin' time. That's one thing about email lists, is authors are so precious about, like, oh, I would never delete anybody and da da da. No, man, if you're not opening emails, I will kick you the hell off. So go get Nightblade for free, and then if you don't enjoy it, you didn't pay any money, so don't leave me a bad review on Amazon.
I definitely want to check it out. And I really enjoyed this conversation as well. You're a fantastic dude. And again, thank you so much for joining me today. I really
Oh,
appreciate
thank
it.
you.